Welcome back, guys. Today, while we wait for some parts and tools to show up so I can finish some of the motor stuff, we're going to step back here and take care of a few things that have left to be done. I need to get the fuel pump and fuel pressure regulator mounted. I think I'm going to need some fittings, so probably just going to mount the items themselves, and then we'll work on the hoses later. I have to figure out exactly which fittings I need to get on order. Probably do the evap canister. The brake lines in the back still need to be finished up. Might work on the oil accumulator a little bit. We'll see how far we get. talk about my fuel filter setup here. Maybe you guys will find it helpful. I apologize if you can hear the lawnmower in the background. My neighbor is mowing his grass. So I picked these up really cheap off of Amazon. I got 2 of them, and they use a universal Aeromotive fuel filter. Here, I'll show it here. These guys, they come in, I think 10 micron, 20 micron, 100 micron. They come in different sizes, and these are, you know, replaceable, serviceable fuel filter setup. And these use the same filter, but they're super cheap. I don't really trust the filters that are in them, so I bought 2 of them. One is a pre-filter with a 100 micron Aeromotive filter to throw in it, and then a post pump filter, and I'm running a 10 micron in that. So I'll put a link down in the description to these on Amazon, but you do have to do just a little bit of work to them. So this unscrews. You've got your filter here. This is the one that comes with it that I'll just throw away. And unfortunately, so this is, I think, a 10AN fitting on here on the end, and you can get them in 6, 8, and 10, I believe, if memory serves. But if you look at that, they've got this really restrictive hole in here. The other side is not restrictive at all, but this side is. You can see the difference in sizes. So I will throw this in my vise, and I'll just drill this out to a much larger size. It doesn't affect, as long as you don't hit the threads on the inside of here. This side doesn't matter. So I drill this out to a nice large size so there's plenty of flow through here. And then I'll throw the Aeromotive filter in there, and we'll be good to go. Before I jump over there and drill that filter out that I was just talking about, let me show you what I've set up here. So I haven't cut any of the hoses yet, but I've got the pre-filter here, and then I may change the mounting location of this slightly because you can kind of see it's not in line with this, so I may choose to mount it in here. We'll see once I get this hose cut if I need to adjust that. This little clamp lets me move this a little bit, so I've got some adjustment. Once I cut this hose, we'll see what I can do there. If I need to cut off, this is just a little piece of fiberglass that remains from the Corvette. So I may bolt it straight to the frame. This guy is mounted in. I used some riv nuts and put a little piece of rubber between here just to hopefully cut down on noise, vibration running through the frame, since it's bolted essentially directly to the frame. And then this post filter, I think I'm gonna mount probably something like this, so it'll, you know, come at a 90 and go down. And then I've got to figure out where to mount the Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator. So I get to run Aeromotive for everything that's an Aeromotive pump, Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator, Aeromotive filters in these post and pre-filters. Let me talk about this fuel pressure regulator and it being in the back. This is a Gen 5 motor, which means there is a high pressure fuel pump on the motor that's driven by the cam because it's direct injected. So from my research and what I found online is, as long as you're not running boost, if you're just staying NA, which I'm planning on it, you can put the fuel pressure regulator in the back and keep the pressure at over 70 psi, which is what it needs anyway, and that shouldn't affect the way the motor runs. So that's the way I'm going to try and run that. That'll keep my return line coming out of the FPR really short, coming right back to the fuel cell that's back here, and I'll only have one main feed line going up to the front. So that should be convenient. Cut down on the hose, cut down on weight just a little bit, since weight is part of the name of the game with this car. and make it a little more simple. So that'll be that. As far as fuel, I am running 8 AN all the way through the pump. These are 10 AN on here right now. This is the way I bought this actually on Facebook Marketplace, and the guy had 10 AN, but I don't need 10. 6 is actually probably enough for my setup, but I'm going to go ahead and run 8. It might be needed for E85, so I'm going to run 8. These will have to change. These filter housings that I bought are already at 8 AN. The back of the fuel cells at 8 AM. So it'll be 8 AN and then 6 back to the tank. So let me see what else I can do to get this set up. Okay, slight change in what I was going to do. I decided to not put it up there. Let me get my hand free here. Decided not to put it up here because it would be kind of in the way. Sometimes I use this area to lay stuff kind of across the back. So decided to put everything down here where the battery's at. So on the bottom there is that fuel filter, so it'll go from right to left, in on the right and out on the left side or driver's side, and then up to the fuel pressure regulator. I put it on top so it'll be easy for me to get to and adjust, and then so that I'll go up and into the driver's side or left side here, and then out on the right side, and probably down out through this fiberglass here somewhere and down underneath the car. So that'll kind of be the routing of the lines. So this is all mounted. I'm going to call it quits for the evening, but I'll need to wire in this fuel pump next and wire in a relay for that. Get this fuel cell back in its spot. And we'll work on some more stuff here in the back next, probably tomorrow. Okay, so you just saw me get the rear brake lines all fixed together, so that should be good. All the flares look good. I'll have to pressure test it later, but I'm fairly confident at this point. We'll see. Let me talk about what I'm doing next. This will take a little bit of explanation. So let's start at the bottom. Okay, down here, grab my light. This guy here is an oil accumulator. So if you don't know what that is, just look it up. But basically, in a hard corner, all the oil can move to one side of the engine and oil pressure can drop. This is pressurized by air on one side, on this side of the tank, and oil pressure pushes oil into here, pressurizes the air, and then in the event of dropping oil pressure, the pressurized air helps push oil back into the system so that you don't experience oil starvation. This thing is 3 quarts total in volume, and you never actually fill it up with 3 quarts of oil because, you know, as the oil pressure pushes there's a piston in here to this side, the pressure builds up on this side, and eventually you hit equilibrium where you've got, let's say, 50 psi of oil pressure, and the air on this side is also 50 psi. And then if the engine experiences a loss of oil pressure, let's say it drops to 10, this is pressurized by 50 psi of air, and it pushes the oil back into the engine so that it doesn't experience oil starvation. That's the basic concept. There is a way to expand the capacity of this, and that is by using what is usually plumbed in for a pressure gauge, which it is currently. It's facing the wrong way, but this is directly into the air side of this chamber. We can take a hose and run it up, and this is a 2-gallon tank or 8 quarts of air. And so I can increase my air volume and still keep air pressure enough that this tank will fill up more. So rather than filling up for, let's say, with maybe 1.5 quarts to 2 quarts of oil, I can fully fill this or get close to 3 quarts of oil in this thing. And so this will hold more volume of oil, thereby more protection in a longer corner, and always has significant air pressure to drive the piston back, because remember, this is driven by air. So as you get down to this end, you may still have, let's say, 1/2 quart to 1 quart of oil on this side, but you've lost enough air pressure because of the expanding air that doesn't actually push out the rest of what it should. And so I can run a slightly higher air pressure because it'll be 8 quarts of air, or maybe 10 quarts of air when it's low, and be able to drive more pressure back to the engine. So this is an easy way. This is just a expansion tank for plumbing. It does have an air bladder. So what I'm going to do is drill into this with a long drill bit and puncture that air bladder so that there's equilibrium between both of these sides. And rather than having, you know, in a home plumbing situation, you'd have a pressurized tank on one side of the air bladder and then water pressure on the other side, you know, outside of your hot water heater. So this, I've already measured, should fit nicely down in this little cubby. Now that the ABS pump is gone, this will fit nice and tight. I went ahead and cut off the stanchions on the bottom of this aluminum plate that held the ABS pump, so this will fit in here, and I'll be able to protect my engine well. Okay, let me get you in here to show you. Nice and tucked down in there. It was a little struggle to get those bolts tightened in because of where they're at, but got it done. So I'll have to figure out a way to plumb that hose from here back down to the passenger side of that canister, but shouldn't be too difficult. and then that'll be ready to rock. So it's getting a little late for a work night, so I'm going to shut it down for the evening, and we'll continue on the progress probably maybe tomorrow night. Well, I got everything plumbed up and I'm just about finished back here, so this will probably be the end of this video, but let me show you what I've got. So I've got the fittings installed here. I went ahead and put 50 psi of pressure in the system, so it's showing 50 psi on that gauge. I'll check it in a day or two and just make sure it's holding pressure, but everything's taped up so far. It's been holding pressure for the last 2 hours or so, so I think we're good there. The line goes up and over that way. The loop is just kind of to take up just a little bit of extra slack, since I bought this pre-made, I think it was a 36-inch hose or something. And comes up and over. Still got to do the fuel hoses, but that'll get done a little bit later. I'm waiting for some fittings to get in, and then comes into this end of the tank. The Schrader valve is right there for filling it with air. So that's all set up at this point. And then I went ahead and got the little Miata evap canister in. I just zip tied it to this rail that holds the strap that holds the fuel cell in. 2 zip ties, and it's holding pretty steady. So that's much smaller than the evap canister that was in there that came off the Corvette. And so everything is mostly wrapped up back here, and you still need to wire in the fuel pump, but it's time to get back to the motor on the front end. So this will wrap up this video. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one.